esteemed chemists here. I hope you all enjoyed last time's experiments. This time we are in for some more fun. As you can see, we have a lot of things on the table that you should be familiar with. For instance, this right here. This is just some normal table salt. Over here, we also have some all-purpose flour, a simple tray. If you don't have a tray, you can use a plate, or you can just use the table. Right here, I got a bucket of water, a bowl of water. We're going to get to this a little bit later. Some food coloring. I have all 4 colors of my food coloring. Another cup, just to make sure that you can transfer water safely. Remember, safety is very important when doing our experiments. We want to make sure that we're practicing safe science and we're wearing protective gear. For instance, I have safety glasses on, so today we might not need safety glasses just as much because we're going to be hands-on, physical. Nothing should be splashing up. But if you do have some safety glasses, put them on during these activities because it's always another extra layer of safety added on. Also, if you have an apron or a lab coat, we want to roll up our sleeves today also. So if you have short sleeves, perfect. If you have long sleeves, just go ahead and roll those sleeves right on up. And then we have a few cups over here. We have Styflo. This is liquid starch. We use it for our clothes and fabrics. This is detergent. It's called Borax. So detergent. This and this have the same molecule that we want to focus on, or compound, called sodium Tetraborate. We'll get to that later. Over here we have finally glue. I'm sure you all know where this is going, but we're going to wait for that towards the end. First, let's start with what we're going to be learning about today. So the first experiment, we're going to be making our own Play-Doh. Yes, Play-Doh. You do not have to go out and buy Play-Doh. You can simply make Play-Doh right at home, and I'm going to show you how with these simple materials here. It's just like baking biscuits or baking brownies or baking anything. Remember, very, very important, we do not eat, I repeat, we do not eat when we're doing science experiments because as you can see, this is flour. We use flour to bake cookies, bake pies, bake all different types of breads. Right here, salt. Salt is an ingredient we use every day in our foods to make our foods taste better. These 2 items are edible, but remember, today we're not eating. Just like any other time we're doing science experiments, we do not eat in science because this right here, this could easily be water. However, in science, this could also be what? What do you think it could be? A clear, colorless liquid in science. This could be vinegar because remember, you can't smell it right now. But it's not vinegar. And remember, we do not do that either when we're sniffing different types of liquids. What do? We waft in the air. But since I knew that this was water, I could go ahead and just, see, clear, nice, clean water. Also, you want to make sure you have a nice empty container. You can have a jug, a cup, a piece of Tupperware, all of that. So first things first, let's take out our flour. Flour. What we're going to do is take 4 big old spoonfuls of flour. 4 spoons of flour. And just put it into our bowl. There go 1. There go 2. 3. And 4. So, 4 spoons of flour. And let's go ahead and get that nice and spread out evenly in our container. Because what we're now going to add to it is some salt. So salt, this is actually sodium chloride. Another name for table salt, sodium chloride. Salt. So we're going to take that and we're going to do 1 spoon of salt. So this recipe, it calls for 1 spoon of salt and 4 spoons of flour. And just sprinkle that on. Now, a little increased learning. What I like you to do is just look at the difference between the materials. How the salt looks different than the actual flour that is sitting on top of. Now, really important, make sure we're not eating or drinking. We do not want to touch our face. We don't want to touch our lips, accidentally lick our fingers, or wipe our eyes. We want to make sure we're practicing safe science and make sure you have the supervision of an adult. So just shake that around, but get a feel for the different materials. So if you feel the salt, you can feel the salt has a little bit more rough texture than the flour. The flour has more of a smooth texture. That's because the flour, as you can see, has much more surface area because it's finely ground down. Remember that surface area, the amount of area around a piece of material that comes in contact with its outside surface. All right, or outside environment and surface. So we got our flour and our salt mixture. Next, we want to have a cup of water. Just go ahead and get a cup of water. What you want to do is make sure that your water is warm water. So you can take your water, put it in a microwave for about a minute. It will then warm up and the molecules will work better because what we're going to do in this experiment before we start, this flour here, it contains proteins in it. And when the flour proteins mix with the water, those proteins then starts to get stretched out and they become more elastic. Very important for this because when we're playing with Play-Doh, we want it to stretch, right? We want it to stretch. All right, now we want to take our water and we want to color our water the color that we want our food coloring. Today I have green. Color our water the color that we want our Play-Doh. That's what I meant. There we go. So I got green. 1 drop will do for me because I don't want it fairly dark. I want it just a nice. Now, what we want to do is slowly add in our water, and we're going to fold it in using our spoon, or you can use your hands. It's always fun to actually feel it with your hands. Feel those textures changing as it goes on. These materials will simply wash off of your hands. First, I'm going to use a spoon just to make sure that I get all of my flour mixed in nice and well with our liquids here. So take our liquid, pour it in. It's always good to go slow because remember you can always add more water or flour, but you don't want to waste materials if you don't have to. So as you can see, just mix that around. Now it looks like that I added a little bit too much water, but that's quite all right. But you can see it's starting to clump up. See? Clump up. Now remember, concentration. We talked about that last time. Increase the concentration of flour, then you have more solids in there to react with that liquid. So let's just add just about another spoonful or so and mix that in there, work that in there. There we go. The reason why we have salt in our mixture is because the salt acts as a preservative. So that makes our Play-Doh last longer instead of decaying so fast. Alright, starting to come. Let's add a little bit more salt in there since we're about to add some more flour. Sugar, but not sugar. It looks like sugar. Let's add a little more flour. So that was about another spoon of flour. Right, and you want to make sure you're working it in. Work in the solids with all the liquids. Eventually, you will get a consistency that is moldable. You want to make sure that the consistency is moldable. Right now, it's still fairly liquidy. So you want to keep on adding more and more flour in. Remember, little by little. So let's do 1 spoon at a time and work that in. We're not going to add any liquid anymore because if we add liquid, it just means that we're going to have to add more flour. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure our Play-Doh is nice and sufficient when we're using our materials. We don't want to waste materials. So we want to make sure that we're having sufficient and efficient experiments. So now look at it. Added the flour to it, and you can see now it's starting to thicken up there. I think I might add just a little bit more flour just to make sure that it has more of a solid concentration than a liquid concentration. Let's do that, and we're going to fold this in nice and well. Fold that in. There we go. Eventually, the spoon will get more in the way than anything, and then we're going to move on to the next step. But use your spoon until you have a mound or a mold that you can kind of pull up like that, and then we'll get in with our fingers and get down into it physically, more physically. Add a sprinkle, a little bit more flour. That was about 1/4 spoon. And you want to make sure that starts to look something like this. As you can see, starting to stay together a little bit more of a solid. You can make your Play-Doh as concentrated as you like with flour. Some of you may want yours a little bit more liquidy, but you do want it to at least go this far. You don't want nothing less, no more liquid than this. No more liquidy than this. So this right here is okay if you want to take this to the next step, which we'll get to in a second. I'm going to add just a little bit more flour because I want to be able to have mine on different surfaces. Because if you have something that's a little bit more wet, you're going to have to keep it on a plate or some type of surface that you do not want to stain. For instance, you do not want it on carpet. You don't want to put this in your hair. None of that. Safety first, everyone. All right, so now if you look, I can actually kind of pull this up on one spoon because it's now nice and solidified. Once you have it to your consistency preference, we're going to add oil. So here's a little bit of oil. The oil makes it nice and lubricated so that when we do put it on different surfaces, it doesn't stick so much if we were not to put oil. So here's our oil. Just want to put a spoonful of oil on there. Spoonful of oil. You want to make sure you work that oil in nice and well. Because remember, Play-Doh, we're going to be molding it, breaking some pieces off. So we want to make sure this is mixed in as much as possible. Now, the reason why we're putting the oil on last is because, remember, the oil and water do not mix. So if we were to add oil, for instance, to our water mixture before we blended it, it would have been really clumpy. This way, you have the water making the proteins in our flour elastic first, and then once they're elastic, then you can add oil on top of it. Because remember, the reaction is with the flour and the water, making those bands of proteins elongated and elastic. Then we add the oil to the top to make it nice and shiny, and it will not stick to different types of. As you can see, it's not sticking to this as much because we added oil to it as well. So now this is a nice consistency here. I like that. I'm going to move this. Let's put that right there. Now you want to take your tray or your plate or what have you, and we're going to take our flour and just lightly flour it. Lightly flour it. You want to make it nice and even because what we're going to do is take our Play-Doh and rub it off your spoon if you have it on a spoon. Take your Play-Doh out. That's nice and wet still. I'll get a piece like that. And you're going to roll it in your dough. Like that. Whoa, mine's still a little bit wet. So if yours is still wet like this, all you want to do is add more flour. So the more flour that you add, you just work that flour in. Work the flour in until it's not as wet. Because remember, the flour is going to soak up the water, and then it's going to elongate and stretch out those protein bonds, making it a dough that we can play with. That's why they call it Play-Doh. See, play with your dough. Play-Doh. Just grab some more flour out and play with it, y'all. You can feel the actual consistency starting to change over time as you play with it. Remember, the more you work it, the more that you're adding energy to it. So the more energy that you add to it, the better that you're elongating these bonds. And as it's reacting with this water and flour, as the water and flour reacts, you can see now it's starting to become something more moldable, like this. Just like that. I'm going to take my fingers and put them in a bowl. And as you can see, this is just regular dough. It just crumbles right on off. And you can do that. It'll come right on off. There we go. Still a little sticky, but comes off. No So now, come back to our Play-Doh on our table, our plate rather. Now what you want to do is squeeze it and mold it. You want to make sure that you're folding it over on top of itself, making sure that there are still no wet spots left remaining, and if there are still some sticky wet spots, just tap it back down into your flour. And this right here will keep it from being wet, and it won't stick to your fingers as much because this has already been reacted with the water, and those bonds are elastic, and you can roll, see, elastic. Play-Doh. And remember, you can have this at whatever consistency that you like. You can add more flour if you were to have more flour. This would obviously just be a thicker dough, just like if you have biscuits or bread. This right here is a nice, I guess you could say this is kind of like the elastic as you could get if you wanted a Play-Doh. Some Play-Dohs are a little bit more firm. But yeah, have fun with it. What you want to do to preserve this and keep it, have some flour in, say, a Ziploc bag. Put it in your Ziploc bag with some flour, and it'll be preserved for about a few days. If it does dry up, you know how to make some more. Or you can just add water to it. You can do that as well. But yeah, Play-Doh, and you can see now, just like Play-Doh from the store. See? Play-Doh. Play-Doh is real. Play-Doh. Play-Doh, Play-Doh. All right, I'm back. Hands clean. As you can see, the Play-Doh washes right off. Went ahead and just washed my hands real quick so that I can get in with the next experiment. Let's go ahead and set it to the side. This right here. All right, let's get into some polymer making. So we're going to create some polymers. We're going to create 3 different polymers. You can choose which one that you want to do. You can create all 3. What we're going to start with is 3 cups. Get your 3 cups set out. I'm going to have these for a little bit later. Now, we are going to take glue. Glue is a liquid that dries, and when it dries, it solidifies. As you can see, I just took off a piece, and I feel it, and it's really, really hard. So this is a nice sturdy polymer here. Polymer, remember that, it means many parts. So what we have here is glue, and glue is very elastic. It stretches out, it's stringy, it's sticky, but what we're going to create is a solution called Borax solution. And what we're going to do is take our Borax solid here. We got a solid, go ahead and open it up. And we're going to take our container and make a Borax solution. Now, we don't want to have this straight into our mixture of our polymer early on because this is going to make our glue seize up. And, well, we'll get to that here in a second. Let's first make our Borax solution. So go ahead and open up your container. Open up your container. Depending on how big your container is, depends on how much Borax solution you're putting in there. As you can see, this is what Borax looks like. Looks just like any other solid that we may see in the kitchen cooking. So that's why it's another thing. Very important. We do not eat or drink when we're doing experiments. This looks like it could be candy. This looks like it could be sugar. You could easily simply mistake this for that, but it's not. This is dish detergent and laundry detergent. You do not want to drink this at all. See? This is for laundry. Boom. For the laundry, bathroom, and kitchen cleaning, multi-purpose household cleaner, removes stains, it neutralizes odors. Yeah, do not eat this. Do not eat dirty science. So take our spoon. As you can see, it's a nice powder. See that? It's powder. Take our spoon, put it into our container here. There we go. There we go. All right, so we got our solid in our container. As you can see, now we want to dilute this or make it a solution. So solutions are when you put more likely solids into liquids or liquids into solids. And what we're going to do is add water to this. water. There we go. Water. Go ahead and close it up. Now we want to mix this nice and good. Mix that up. We want to make sure that we're reacting as much solid with this liquid as possible so that we can get our solids spread out throughout our solution here. So we'll shake, 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 shake. All right. There we go. Borax solution. So 3 different cups set out. If you don't have a cup, you can use a bowl. It works just fine. Make sure that you have a stirring utensil for each, whether it's a spoon. I have popsicle sticks here. Popsicle sticks. I have 3 different food colorings so that I can make sure I differentiate the 3 different experiments because we are doing 3 different experiments. Take your glue and you only want to fill our cup or our you want to fill our cup about 1/4 of the way. We don't need a lot for each cup. So just 1/4 of the way with glue. There we go. And another one. There we go. Cool beans in a hot pot. So now we color. I'll put the purple one there. Let's do 2 drops. 3 drops. Purple. Red, which will more than likely look pink, and blue. Alright, so these all are the same. The only difference would be maybe about the volume of glue or the color. Now we're going to make them different. Different. Move this out of the way. So right here, let's say we're going to make the purple one nice and stretchy and elongated. This polymer, we're going to make something that is stretchy but not as stretchy. It has a little bit more give to it. This one, we are going to make nice and stiff and sturdy. For instance, this, nice and stiff and sturdy, but it also has a little bend right there. See that bend? For instance, this. This is very elastic and stretchy. See that? You can even stretch it like that. See, stretch it, stretch. Elastic. And then you have something that's a little bit more firm. As you just saw me try to struggle to get it off. This has a little bit more of materials to it. More materials, meaning more matter, polymer, more parts. Get the picture? Now, this is our Styflo. So our Styflo, whatever you want to call it. This is liquid starch, and it also has sodium tetraborate in it. But this is a very, very lower concentrated sodium tetraborate. You could say this is watered down. This sodium tetraborate right here, this is highly concentrated. So what sodium tetraborate does with our polymer here, it comes in contact with our glue and our water. We're not going to use water first. We're going to use water to wash it off. And we also have water in our sodium tetraborate solution. But first things first, let's talk about what happens with the sodium tetraborate and our glue. So glue, do this. Wiggle, 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 wiggle. Glue is a liquid, and liquids have wiggle. As you can see, here's our water. Here's that splash. So water, it has wiggle. Now, that's because liquid molecules are a lot more loose than solids. Not a lot looser than gases. Gases just are frantic and full of energy. Liquid molecules are kind of still held on together. It's kind of like they're flowing. Get it? They're flowing. So, wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. We got our wiggle fingers, which is our glue. So our glue is wiggling and it's wiggling. Then something comes in called sodium tetraborate. And what that does is allow our glue to then get cross-linked. So go ahead and do your fingers like that. Cross-link. So you cross-link them. So now you can either have something that's stiff and rigid when you have a very, very large amount of cross-link aid. In this case is sodium tetraborate. So it comes in contact and binds our glue together, and you can have something really tight, like a stiff material, or you have something a little loose. Go ahead and loosen it up a little bit. Just spread your hands apart. But remember, you're still connected, but you still got a little bit more wiggle. See, when you use like that, you really just, you only have a little bit of room to move. But when you open it up and loosen up a little bit, you have a little bit more flow, if you would. See? Flow. Then if you open it up like that, then you really have a lot of stretchy materials. And then at this point, it could break easily, and then it could come and disconnect, and then you'll have something stringy. We'll get to that here in a second. All right, so first things first, take our Styflo, and we only add Styflo in the first one that we want to make stretchy. We want to add about the same amount of glue, add about the same amount of liquid starch as glue. So that, then half that amount for the second one. So just a little bit of Styflo, liquid starch. The last one doesn't get any at all, because remember, we want this to be a nice sturdy, rigid material. So we're going to leave that as is. Now what we're going to do is mix. So Sir Mix-a-Lot, I have one for each. So let's mix that up. As you can see here, there's a lot more volume here. That's because we added a lot more Styflo. That's going to be our elastic ingredient. So as you can see, it's nice and sticky, but it's still starting to clump up. You see it? That clumping right there is the sodium tetraborate starting to do the cross-linking. So what you have to do right now, which is very important, is work in the Styflo with the glue. So you want to mix that around nice and well. Mix it so that you can have as much glue reacted with that other liquid, the liquid starch, as much as possible. And make sure you mix in that food coloring as well. So you want to mix that, mix that, mix that. I'm going to do this one as well. Don't want to leave you hanging blue. Can't leave you hanging blue. So when you're doing reactions, this case, what we're doing is just a physical reaction. We're mixing these two things together. We're not creating anything new here. What's in here is what's in here. We're just mixing it together. And what happens is a physical transformation starts to take place. And the properties start to change when you have different things starting to mix in with each other. So we got that mixed around. We're not adding heat here. All we're doing is adding a little bit of force, energy. We are basically, drip, drip. We are basically doing this, but with two liquids. So our solids here is easy to mix this together. We have a nice sealed container, but the more that you agitate, the more that you mix two different things together, the better mixing and the better reactivity that you have. So we got that mixed, got this mixed, we got this mixed. As you can see, you still have a liquidy consistency there. This one still has a lot of liquidy consistency there. This one's already started to clump up, as you can see. But this one, we didn't put a lot of Styflo in there, but it has a little bit. The reason why it's still a lot liquidy is because there's a lot less Styflo in here, or liquid starch, and there's a lot more glue. So let's go here. I'll show you. So here's our glue with our red. Ooh, that's nice. So look, just like the one here, it actually comes down a lot faster because the glue is heavy and weighed down and it's sticky here. All right, so now what we're going to do is add in our Styflo, So now what we're going to do is take our sodium tetraborate solution, and we are going to add the sodium tetraborate to the red cup. So the one that we want to make the firmest, we're going to do that first. We're going to make sure that all these nice and get mixed, sit there and soak up each other. So take our solution and just add it to your cup. There we go. Boom. So now I added that there, and you want to give it a nice stir. Give it a real good stir. Real good stir. And you can see, look, it's already starting to clump up. Let's move this out of the way. Get a good foundation here. Give that a nice good stir. And look at it now. It's already starting to string up and get clumped up. But we want to make sure that this is nice and stiff. I may not have enough sodium tetraborate in here. So we're going to add some more. Take this off here. Do that. There we go. And you want to make sure that it's not touching the wall. So just take your spoon or your, as in my case, popsicle stick, and just kind of go around the sides in a circular motion, making sure that it doesn't stick to the sides, and you'll see and feel it start to stick to your starts to stick to your spoon or your popsicle stick. What you do then is just kind of scrape it off on the side, scrape it off, and just keep on doing that motion because there's still some liquid that has yet to be filled by the sodium tetraborate. And you want to make sure everything gets nice and soaked in that sodium tetraborate, and a little bit of liquid to that. Same circular motion. Get it nice and mixed in. I think we need to add some more sodium tetraborate to our mixture here. Let's do that. It needs to be open. There we go. So let's add in another 1 spoon. 2 spoons, 3 spoons, 4 spoons, 5 spoons. Now that ought to do it. That ought to do it. All right. Give this a nice good shake. Let's grab another. Let's use this cup. Boom. There we go. Boom. There we go. There we go. And you can see now immediately that was the problem there. I didn't have my concentration of sodium tetraborate high enough. I had too much water, not enough solid. So now I can easily do this experiment. Remember, it's always important to try and retry, test and investigate your experiments. All right, there we go. Nice and clumpy. And you want to get that nice and worked in. Work. Add a little bit more liquid. There we go. And this, I'll wait for that. There we go. Now you'll find it to be more of a clump, and you can pick it up like that. You want to make sure that it all is reacted with that sodium tetraborate solution as much as possible. So much that when you touch it, as you can see earlier, it was sticking to my fingers, but now if I pick it up, nothing's on my finger other than water because all this liquid is sodium tetraborate, well, heavily sodium tetraborate, and boom. Now you want to take it and transfer it to your bucket of water. You want to wash off as much sodium tetraborate as possible, and at the same time, you want to make sure that you're also getting off any excess glue that may be on there. Another thing you can do is put sodium tetraborate in your solution here so that you can make sure that it also congeals up and sticks and doesn't stick to your hands. Go and just give it a roll motion. Rolling. There we go. There's still a lot of glue on here, as you can see. So what I'm going to do is take this, just pour a whole shebang in there. That way, this just becomes our sodium tetraborate bath. Probably should do that in the first place, but hey, that's science for you. Learn as you go. Learn as you go. Test out different ways of doing things, safely of course. And as you can see, this now is starting to solidify. Boom. Into a nice stretchy polymer. Ooh. Still got some solution here, so I'll be able to make the rigid one here in a second. You want to make sure you get this nice and molded, so you want to fold this into itself until it becomes one full solid. Instead of strings kind of hanging and dangling from the sides. There we go. Got a little glue stuck on my hand there. But as you can see, slide this over. Now we have a polymer. So this started out as glue. we added our stay flow to it, which was our liquid starch. And then we increased our solution of sodium tetraborate here, or our borax solution. The thing is, we have to always think about reactivity, and what we wanted to react here, more importantly, was the cross-linking factor of our sodium tetraborate. So to do that, we didn't have a lot of cross-linking at first, especially with this right here. See this? It's nice and still a mold, but it's nothing like this right here. See, this is nothing like this. So what we want to do to make this more like this is add more sodium tetraborate. Boom. So here's our purple one. As you can see, you can pull it and stretch it nice and elastic. I can let it hang. There's our blue one. Blue one. Let that do its thing as well. Alright, so these materials here that we just created, we do not want to eat or drink also, and what we want to do to preserve them, put them in a Ziploc bag. If it does start to get dry over time, just add water to it. Do not play with this unless your parents allow you to. Do not play with this in any carpeted area. Do not play with this on any furniture. No hair. Don't put it in your hair, and all that. But do have fun with it. Practice safe science. Make different types. You can use different types of glue as well. That's one way to increase your experimenting. But yeah, have fun with your polymer. Whoa. Have fun. Happy experimenting. Thank you all for joining me today. I appreciate your time and see you next time. Yeah.